Hey gang, it's Johnny. I just want to take a second to talk to you guys about engagement. Right now you're listening to the show, and I'm not sure exactly what platform you're listening to it on. But whatever platform you're listening to it on, you can subscribe to it and get an alert every time a new show drops, usually every Tuesday and every Friday. New shows every Tuesday and every Friday. Whatever platform you're listening on, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Overcast, Stitcher, any platform, you can subscribe to it. And if you can leave a comment, leave a star, share it on your social media if it's something that you like, please do that. We encourage you to do that. And also, as far as social media goes, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I am at Johnny Gowdy on Instagram and Twitter. Give us a follow. You get to see photos even of my dog, of guests on the show, of different shows I play. Whatever it is that I'm talking about that I've been doing on the show, you'll be able to catch up on through Instagram and Twitter. Also, you can like our Facebook page. How Did I Get Here? Please do. You'll see photos of me with guests that have been on the show. Anyway, all I want to say is, you like a show, share it, use the hashtag How Did I Get Here Pod. We'll give you a shout out. Thank you so much for listening to the show, and engage. Let's get down. Attention Austin guitar players and bass players. Are you in need of setup or repair on your axe? Well, I have the guy for you, gang. That's Jason Swedberg over at J. Scott Lutherie, and you can find him at J. Scott Lutherie on Instagram. Now, if you listen to the show, you know I've been talking about Jason for years. Why is that? Because I've been taking my guitars to Jason for over 20 years. Not only does he do the best job, but he has the best prices and the fastest service in town. Again, find him at J. Scott Lutherie on Instagram. Not only is he doing an amazing job repairing and setting up guitars, he is now building guitars. That's right. He built me an SG Junior, which I have, and it sounds amazing. It feels great. It's the very first SG Junior he ever built. I've got a J. Scott Lutherie SG Junior. You can go see him at J. Scott Lutherie on Instagram. Get a guitar built. Get your guitars fixed. Get them set up. It's time, man. They've been hanging on the wall all through COVID. Now it's time to get them out, get them fixed, and get out there and play. J. Scott Lutherie on Instagram. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? Here is your host,
All right, hello, I'm Johnny, I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys all had a good weekend, whatever it is you did this weekend. It's been a gorgeous weekend so far. I'm actually doing this on Sunday since the show's dropping on Monday, and I just got back from a leash-free dog island called Redbud Isle here in Austin. If you have a dog, you probably know about it, and you live here in Austin, but it's pretty awesome. Rosie and I went out there this morning pretty early because on the weekends, especially when it's a nice day, you know it's going to get packed. And not that, Rosie doesn't do good with a lot of dogs, but I don't like having to deal with parking like down the street or some shit. So we went down there and had a great time. Walked around for like an hour. Been doing that lately. I actually went to the Turkey Creek Trail with my friend Kelly Mickwey, from the show. Great musician, great songwriter. And her dog Mo, her and Rosie are fast friends. And we walked around the whole trail, and Rosie had a blast. Swam in the creek for the first time. Dove in on her own. Had a blast. So it's been kind of a dog time. As we ramp up here in Austin for South by Southwest, I actually went to dinner at a friend of mine's house on Friday night. Rosie and I both went. We were invited, and we went and hung out. But my friend works for South by Southwest, and he had to keep on getting up to go answer emails, go do phone stuff, go give some guy a thing about something on the phone, or So it's getting into full swing. People are going to be coming into town. I actually don't have a really busy South by podcast wise. What I do have, I'm not playing. I'm doing one panel on Saturday. I'll tell you guys about that later on in the week. It's for this new independent music streaming service called Uni. So uni.io. You can find out about it. That'll be on Saturday. And then I'm doing one podcast with a friend of mine that writes for Magnet Magazine. Great dude. And he's got a great podcast. We'll talk all about it. You're going to love it. And so I decided I'm just going to go to some parties. Got invited to some parties. Going to go see some people play. Maybe I'll run into some people, maybe have them on the show. I don't know. I just thought maybe this year, after doing so many South by Southwest, so many years, having the last 2 years off has been like, wow. When you're in it, you know, as a musician, sometimes you'll end up playing a lot of shows. And it seems like you got to do these shows. You say yes. I played, last time I did one of those was in 2011 when I had this band Liars and Saints. And we played like 6 shows in one day, like from noon until midnight. And I played 2 solo acoustic shows on top. So I played like 8 shows. And it wears you out, man. It's exciting and it's super fun to do. And it's like, you know, it's an endurance test. It's like, how many times can you make the show interesting in one day? You know, you're kind of playing the same songs because usually you're promoting one piece of work. So you kind of have like one set, you're going around doing it, but you're trying to make it interesting for yourself every time because you're playing it 6 times in one day. So after so many years of doing shit like that and having the last 2 years off, I thought, man, this year maybe I'll just go and walk around and do stuff. I don't have a badge or anything. If anyone has a badge they want to give me, I'd love it. But I'm going to go to, there's tons of other stuff going on. There's tons of different stuff I've been invited to. So I'm going to go to some parties, go hang out, see what all I can take Rosie to, and go do that stuff. So Austin's ramping up for South by Southwest. That's what I was getting to. And that's coming up next week. The music part is next week. I think the whole interactive and everything is going on this week, and the film and everything. So if you're in it, let us know how it's going. Because I'm sure you're probably having a pretty good time. It's probably pretty nice to be out there with the numbers going down. Austin's moved into stage 2. Everyone can kind of start going around places and doing stuff. Masks are a little more optional. You can kind of greet people and smile and see old friends you haven't seen. That's been happening for me for the last month, and that's been great. It's been fantastic. Guys, I have an amazing show for you today. An amazing show for you today. Music legend, especially Texas music legend, Bob Livingston from the Lost Gonzo Band, from Bob Livingston. I mean, the dude has played on like so many records with Jerry Jeff Walker, played on 2 Ray Wylie Hubbard records, played on Stephen Fromholtz records, Butch Hancock records, Terry Allen records, Pat Green records, Gary P. Nunn records, Corey Morrow records. He's a part of the Lost Gonzo Band, the band that is on the legendary Jerry Jeff Walker album, Viva Terlingua. He's got some great stories about that. He's writing a book about all of that stuff. We get into a couple of really good stories about it. But you can find him at BobLivingstonMusic.com. Man, we had a great conversation. Great conversation. I have to thank his son, Tucker Livingston, who's been a friend of mine for well over a decade, like 15 years. Me and him have been friends. He's a great guy. Great dude. And he's living in another country, like India or something. And he wrote me on Facebook and he was like, hey, you gotta meet my dad. So he introduced us via email. And then everything kind of dropped off when my uncle died like a month ago. Like the communication kind of dropped off, mostly on my part. And he got back and he was like, hey man, you got to make this happen. And so we did. And I really got to thank Tucker for that. My dear old friend Bradley Kopp has been playing with Bob Livingston for years. Bradley was on the show very early on, I think like the first year of the show, with his wife, Lori Singer, great musician. But Bob and Bradley have been playing, and the Lost Gonzo Band has actually gotten back together. And as of like the day that this comes out, Monday, they're actually playing this Sunday, the 6th. It's Bob Livingston, Gary P. Nunn, Freddie Steady Kirk, and John Inman. And they are out there playing as the Lost Gonzo Band again. They've reformed, and he talks about that. It's a touching story. They were kind of alienated, and you might have heard this on the Gary P. Nunn episode from Jerry Jeff's funeral, and they weren't invited to be there to be part of the memorial. All these guys that kind of were in such a pivotal part of his life, so close to him, you know. And so they banded together and did it again. So the Lost Gonzo Band is back, and you can find them at the lostgonzoband.com. You can find Bob Livingston at boblivingstonmusic.com. He also talks about his band Cowboys and Indians, which is supported by the Texas Commission of the Arts and also the Economic Development Department of Austin, which is this cultural exchange band where they, it's really interesting. Like, you could check that out too. We have a great conversation about that. But also, since 1986, the dude has traveled the world. Bob Livingston has traveled the world as an emissary of the United States State Department, spreading, part of their cultural exchange, as a cultural exchange guy, spreading Western music to other countries and absorbing their music here. There's a great video on his website of he and his son Tucker that I talked about playing Not Fade Away by Buddy Holly all around the world in all these different countries. It's amazing. It's amazing. Anyway, Bob and I have a fantastic conversation. He's a fascinating dude and a really, really cool dude. What a gracious guy. We ended up talking for almost an hour and a half. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with this amazing songwriter, Texas music legend, Bob Livingston. Let's get down.
I got my irons in the fire down in Texas. Got me a toehold in Tennessee. I got my foot in the door of that California store, but I'm up to my ears in me. Don't be concerned if the song sounds familiar. Don't be concerned if it all seems the same. Just be concerned.
He's doing it again, so go revisit the song.
I will.
He comes and goes with any of it, and just because he's who he is. But he's back. He's putting together a songwriter group. As a matter of fact, he was in that one with Todd Schneider and Matt Hubbard and all those people, and it's pretty grueling. I mean, they give it to you on Sunday night.
Yeah.
You got they give it to you Monday morning, and then you got till Sunday night or something to turn it in.
Yeah. I was on a tour with Bob Schneider where you had to do it every single day.
Whoa.
After the gig, you'd get the title, and then after sound check, you had to have the song the next day. Wow. It was intense. Yeah. Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, it was funny. Every sound check, there were people in corners like singing into their little tape recorders.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Trying to finish their songs. Do you ever do that? I
I haven't ever been in that situation. I'm fixing to have to do a big songwriting seminar thing, but I haven't been under pressure. Like I can write a song, on stage, but it's just real hard. I don't know. I've never had that.
I know that Bob was inspired by definitely. You guys didn't have to do it because you were kind of around each other anyway.
Yeah.
Showing each other. So am I wrong? Like in the time, like in the early '70s. In the
what do
time,
you have to do?
You guys were all together. You, Gary P. Nunn, Michael Murphy, Jerry Jeff Walker. All of these guys were kind of around each other. Ray Wylie, inspiring each other, and sort of like driving. And that's kind of like it's an exercise to like make yourself finish a song.
I see. Great. I mean, I'd love to try it sometime.
Yeah.
I need to do it right now with 2 songs. I've got to finish them. So.
How much do you write now? I mean, you've been writing songs for over 50 years now, right?
Yeah, I'm writing. What I'm doing is a book right now, and it's taking all my psychic energy or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
It's for Texas Tech Press, and it's a memoir, but it's all the wild tales of Murphy and Jerry Jeff and the Gonzo Band.
Yeah.
On our merry chase, and it goes on. The book actually ended right before the pandemic. They kept saying, you got to finish it. So the book ends, and then the pandemic hit, and I didn't write another word. And it's a good thing I didn't because Jerry Jeff passes on.
Yeah.
I learned how to use all this kind of equipment, and do my live streams and stuff like that, which completely changed everything in a way to learn how to do all that.
Yeah.
And then the Lost Gonzo Band, the return of the Gonzo Band.
Yeah. I talked to... D. Foster,
yeah,
and he was telling me that you guys were getting back together, and you guys are playing at the Nobility Project.
Exactly.
Right.
And Willie's Luck reunion.
Oh yeah, during South by Southwest.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
It feels great.
Yeah.
I mean, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it sort of happened in that we weren't invited to Jerry Jeff's memorial.
Right.
And for one reason or another, each of us were found to be crossways with Susan, his wife,
right.
And we weren't invited, and we were the elephant in the room, and if we had been invited, people had felt all warm and squishy. Oh, the Gonzos, yada yada, and then they'd go home and they'd still be talking about Buffett and Rodney, Crowell and Emmylou and
right.
Steve Earle and all those people that were there.
Right.
And so now we weren't there, and we had like 10,000 responses to a Facebook post, saying how outrageous it was or whatever.
Right.
And then we ended up, Dee Foster, our manager, said, we're going to make lemonade out of lemons, and we're going to turn this around. And there was a lot of people out there that wanted to hear us, so it feels great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so... you played on a lot of his records, though. Like, in your discography thing, like, there's a few records of someone here, maybe 6 records of someone here, and then the Jerry Jeff one is like a novel.
Yeah. The first record I played with Jerry Jeff was it was just right there at the end of early 72. Jerry Jeff had moved to town. I was playing with Murphy, and I had already recorded, on Murphy's album Geronimo's Cadillac, and so it was sort of instant band. He moved and saw all of us in a rehearsal and said, "Hey, I got songs too. I need to do a new album." He had just been signed with MCA, and we did that album that has L.A. Freeway on it and Charlie Dunn, and that was the first one I did. And then I played with him on, I think it's something like 18 or 19 records.
Jesus, that's a lot, man. That's more than most people even make.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
There was something I did want to talk to you about that I didn't know, that you had moved to L.A. from Lubbock.
Yes.
And you got a deal with Capitol Records.
Yes.
And then there was like an A&R guy got fired or something, and then classic story. Or what happened?
Yeah, it was even more than the A&R guy getting fired. I had in 1969. I got a great draft lottery number. The draft was going. Vietnam was in the air.
Yeah.
And I got number 309. It meant I would never be drafted. So I quit school pretty much the next day. And I was going to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And I went off to, my brother's also a musician, and he was playing up in Aspen. Mm-hmm. So I go up to Aspen, and I'm playing the après-ski, the early morning, or not early morning, but afternoon shows, and people skiing down and drinking, hot toddies. And I was playing, and a guy walked in, he heard me, and he says, "Man, I love your stuff. I think I could get you a record deal." And danged if he didn't do it. And so he said, "Meet me in Los Angeles." So I went out there and got a record deal on Capitol. And in the process, they were Capitol was awash with money from the Beatles, and they were just signing stuff and throwing it on the wall, to see what would stick. And I never made the record. And the president of Capitol, his name was Sal Ananucci, and Sal was fired. And the whole A&R department was fired.
Like a house cleaning.
It was a total house cleaning. Artie Mogul, he's a famous name back then, and he became the president, and he fired everybody. And I think 150 artists were also let go.
Yeah.
And they just started over. And
wow. Did you get bought out and stuff? Like bought out of your contract?
I did.
Yeah.
But my manager was really mad at me because, nothing was happening. I was moving up. I had met Michael Murphy by this time. And so I'm living up in the mountains with him above San Bernardino in Wrightwood, California. And, it's beautiful, and I'm writing songs, and I'm not hearing anything, and we're supposed to have gone in the studio, and I'm a total novice. I'm like 20, 21.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how it's supposed to go. So I wrote this guy, Artie Mogul, a letter. "Hey, Artie, I'm a Capitol Records recording artist, or so I'm told. Nobody tells me anything, but I'm up here in Wrightwood, and I'm writing songs. And why don't you come up here and visit me, and we'll discover some trees and go on some hikes, and we'll get it all together." And he was so incensed. He was just like, because I breached the sacred trust of manager agent only talking to the president guy.
Yeah.
The artist's not supposed to say a word.
Yeah.
And so they let me go and gave me some more money, and so it kept me alive for a year and a half or so.
Yeah. What a weird perspective you must have had on the business.
Total. Right off the
right
get-go.
off the bat. Yeah. Like, well, you just walk in, someone gives you a record deal, you don't have to do anything. Yeah. I have this friend, Rick Parker, that had a bunch of deals in a row, like with EMI, with Geffen, and he got dropped from every single one, and he ended up with like over $1 million. And he said to me one time, we used to write together all the time. He's like, the last 3 deals I've had, like, I haven't even made a record, and I live like Springsteen. It's really weird. Like, it was literally like some kind of, it wasn't even a scheme. He was just getting signed and getting dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah, odd, man.
It is odd.
So you were hanging out then with Michael Murphy, and did he have a deal at the time?
He did not. When I first met Murphy, and I'll tell you how I wrote it, how I met him, I'd had this deal. I bought a Datsun pickup truck with the money and a Martin guitar, and I was driving down this, over in North Hollywood near the Palomino, Lancashire Boulevard, I think.
Yeah.
And I saw a hitchhiker, and I just thought, what the heck? So I picked this guy up, and turns out he's from Germany, and he works on foreign cars for movie stars, and he says he's a mechanic, and he says the only other Texan I know he's also a musician. His name is Mike Murphy, and so I had met this group, Three Faces West in Red River, when I first left.
Right, with Ray Wylie.
And so he wasn't Wylie yet. He was just Ray Hubbard.
Right.
And they were playing Murphy songs. And I thought it was the best stuff in the world. And they knew him. He had already written Wildfire way back then. And, I just said, God, if you ever see Murphy again, give him my name and number. And that night he called me.
Wow.
Murphy, and he said, what are you doing? Why am I supposed to call you? And I told him about Ray and the band. I said, they're doing your songs. I think it's as good as anything I've heard since the Beatles. And Murphy said, you know what? You're a genius. We need to meet. And so that's how we met. And he was living up in that little mountain town, and he invited me up the next weekend. And as soon as, 30 minutes after talking to him, he goes, you got to move here. You got to move here. He took to me right away, and I took to him. I thought he was, God, this guy is the real thing. He was the best songwriter I'd ever come across, and he could deliver it, and he could really play. And he was in a band at the time playing bass, and the band was called Tex. And Murphy was the bass player. So I saw him at the Palomino and a couple of places, on that circuit, that country rock circuit.
Yeah.
And, but after a while, my deal, when that all happened with Capitol and my deal fell through, he said, don't feel, come back and play bass with me. I've got some gigs back in Texas. And I said, I don't know how to play bass. He said, you'll learn. And he handed me this Fender Precision. And from that moment, I became a bass player for all these, for the next 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
And, never being able to, I don't know, it was just automatic pilot, seemed like.
Right.
Because it was all these fortuitous circumstances were opening up, like Jerry Jeff. And, go in, we make a first record, it's Studio A in Columbia for A&M, the Geronimo's Cadillac.
Right.
And then Jerry Jeff shows up, and we start making records for him.
Yeah.
So, I met him, knew him, was greatly influenced by him.
Amazing. Before I let this go, I forgot to say at the beginning, Bradley Kopp is like a big brother to me. I've known since I was like 13.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually lived at the Congress House and stuff
That's fantastic.
In the early 90s.
Bradley is I was just talking about him. He's the guy. I'm putting together this new band. It's like a dance. Dee Foster wants me to do this, to go back and go into the honky-tonks, go into the dances.
Yeah.
And he said, that's the only way you'll make money in this business. You can't make money, playing the house concerts and the folk clubs. You got to do this. And so someone said, I was telling him how hard it was going to be, and he goes, that's okay. You'll have Bradley to help you. And I will. He is that kind of guy. He's a great guy, and he's the one that drives after the show. He wants to come back home,
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I thought I wrote down the name of the song. There's a song, Jerry Jeff did it, and you had it on your last record as well.
Public Domain.
Public Domain.
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
That's like more like that kind of music?
Yeah.
Like that's a honky-tonk sounding song.
Exactly. Yeah. He wants me to, shuffles and swing and stuff like that. basically in the model of Gary Nunn, and not tell stories, because I'm a big storyteller in my house concerts, and they say, "Oh, that's the stories are, the music's okay, but the stories are great," and but I can't do that apparently, and because people they're waiting for the next song.
Oh yeah, in a dance situation.
I have in my own repertoire, I have a lot of swing and I have a lot of shuffles already, and then I'm gonna draw heavily from Jerry Jeff and Murphy in that era. We're trying to kind of redefine the Texas progressive country movement, and whereas I used to say we were part of it, I'm saying we invented it.
Yeah, no, you did.
And we were there. We were.
Yeah,
that was it.
You're the architects.
We're the architects.
Like you really are. Like it's pretty fucking amazing to have that legacy. Yeah. You still you played on a Pat Green record.
Yeah,
you played. I mean, so there's still a connection to the guys that are happening now, and do you feel that?
Not as much as I want it to be, and according to what would happen is I would have more of a connection with those all the young guys and stuff, and it's for me. It's the same as it ever was. I'm so busy. When I come off the road, the last thing I want to do is go to a club or go hang out. In that situation, I'm just I got so much to do that I come home and I'm home.
Yeah.
And so I don't. They know who I am. I know who they are, and we're friends in that way. But I haven't made any music with them other than playing maybe, in some sort of review or something like that.
Right. I saw Freddie Steady Kirch is playing with you guys.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Gonzo Band.
Yeah.
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 He wasn't in the Lost Gonzo Band, but he was in the Gonzo Compadres with Jerry Jeff.
Oh, really?
And so when we put this thing together, he seemed like the perfect, there's a no-brainer because he had played with Jerry Jeff for 15 years as well. And he's our drummer, Gary Nunn, John Inman, myself, and then we have two auxiliary musicians that didn't play, but they're great. Steve Lane on guitar. He does a lot of he's like a savant. He can play anything. But he has these cool guitars. This one that he has, it's like this 9-string bass, like the bass guitars that they had like Lennon's playing in that documentary.
Yeah.
This is an acoustic version of that, but it's a double string. In other words,
like a 12-string kind of thing?
It's a 12-string format, but like the low string is a B, but it has a high B too.
Oh, wow.
So when he's hitting, and he doubles a lot of my bass stuff, so it's this cool sound.
Wow.
And then David Webb is the keyboard player. David played with Jimmy LaFave and a lot of people, and he plays in a lot of. He's a jazz guy, but he plays in a lot of country bands as well. So, and he's going to be playing with me in my band, David Webb.
Awesome.
So
okay. So right now you have the Lost Gonzo Band.
Yeah.
You have Cowboys and Indians, which doesn't perform all the time, right?
No.
Okay.
Especially with this pandemic.
Right. We're going to talk about that stuff too, and then Lost Austin Band.
I'm no longer. I'm leaving the Lost Austin Band. It's just too confusing.
Yeah. How many? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like.
How lost are you, man?
I'm lost. Yeah. That's my wife said. Why are you always so lost? You're just lost everything you do. And when we did that, when we formed that band, see, it was all Craig Hillis's idea. Craig he was on the original. He was on Viva Terlingua.
Yeah.
And he was on the first Jerry Jeff record too, and he was on Cosmic Cowboy.
Yeah, and then he went on to open Steamboat and the Saxon Pub, or he owned Steamboat and the Saxon Pub.
Yeah. And he it was his idea to put together this group that would play some of those songs from that Cosmic Cowboy era. And we did, and I was thinking, they won't be interested in us playing it. And he goes, but he was right, and people are interested in it, and it was pretty good following developing. But it was confused. There was no Gonzo Band in the picture.
Right.
We thought we'd never play again together, And so that made sense for a while, and we kind of took that Lost Austin thing and to try to be kind of evocative of the Lost Gonzo Band, as well as say we're from Austin. But right off the get-go, we made a live album, And when it came time, I introduced. I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Lost Gonzo Band." And Ernie came and stopped me and goes, "It's not the Lost Gonzo Band." "Oh, wait a minute, start over. Everybody clap, and everybody clap again. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Lost Austin Band."
Yeah.
So I had done that, and it was just confusing for people. They'd say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I hear you're playing the saxon."
Right.
No, that's the,
Austin,
so I
yeah.
decided that it would, just for my own mental health, and I'm stretched so thin right now.
Yeah.
To go ahead and get out of that. But they're great guys, and it's a lot more fun playing with them than a lot of other groups I've ever played in.
Yeah. It's cool because I noticed that there's guys like Patterson, Patterson's a few years younger than you. Not that much, but like
Yeah.
you're like a senior and he's like a freshman or sophomore.
Yeah.
Right?
Patterson I met in New York City. We were making the Jerry Jeff record, that first one. It's just called Jerry Jeff the Brown album.
Right.
And we had done a lot of the cuts, but we hadn't cut LA Freeway. And when we were in New York on a tour with Murphy, Gary Nunn and I, Murphy calls up, "Hey, what do you guys?" Jerry Jeff called me up and said, "What are you guys doing?" We're playing the bitter end, and he said, "I'm finishing the record. You and Gary need to come over." So we went. I think it was Electric Ladyland or something. We went to this big studio and played on LA Freeway and a few others. And Patterson Barrett was in the band that he had met from upstate New York called Dufine.
Oh,
And Patterson
wow.
was playing steel and stuff with them.
Right.
So he had this, connection with us.
Wow, I didn't
And
know
ended
that.
up moving to Austin because of it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting thing, and to think like what you guys invented and came up with, and the fact that you were doing it like all over the world, and you were at Electric Ladyland,
Yeah.
recording that stuff, because you always think about that. At least I do. Everything I think that you guys did was done on the cover of Viva Terlingua, like
Yeah.
in that room.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
And
like everyone's records.
And most of it this was a one-off. See, Jerry Jeff liked to record in all these, the world's worst conditions. Like the first record recorded, most of it in this. It was Abandoned Dry Cleaners, Raps Cleaners. It was on 6th Street, West 6th, across from, remember Mad Dogs and Beans?
Of course.
And so right across was this Abandoned Dry Cleaners that they had ripped out the guts and put burlap all over the walls and ceilings and stuff. Had an Ampeg 16-track Ampeg tape recorder in the center of the room. There was no board, there was no sound reduction, there were no faders, nothing. You were plugged straight into that machine, and then it was so complicated to hear a playback. We never listened to playbacks till the end of the evening.
Right.
So we would cut all that stuff, and
Yeah.
then the next day we'd come in and do it again, and that's how that record started. And then it ended up in the really great studio. But they mixed it, of course, in a great studio to get a uniform kind of mixing sound.
Right.
But and then Murphy always wanted to do really world-class studios, which we did. With
You
him.
guys, the second one,
Cosmic Cowboy.
Cosmic Cowboy. You did that in London?
No. We did that at Ray Stevens.
Oh yeah.
Had Ahab the Arab.
Yeah.
And he had a great studio, and a lot of
Right.
hits were cut there and everything. And whereas we cut that album, Cosmic Cowboy, there. And this is what, I don't know if you want me to get into this,
No.
but when Murphy had a lot of tension, a lot of stress. He had nodules on his vocal cords. While we were, in those days you had to do an album a year.
Yeah.
72, 73, 74, 75, and the record company made you do it, get it there whether you're ready or not. Here
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah.
And we had done Geronimo's Cadillac. It had a great reception. It was time to do Murphy's second record. We had been playing with both Murphy and Jerry Jeff, going back and forth. And by the time we got to Nashville, and so when we rehearsed the album, I sang all the songs. He couldn't even speak for 6-7 weeks, and he would come to my house with this yellow, legal pad, and he had written, "Here's a song I wrote last night. It's called Blessing in Disguise. Come over to the piano. I'll whistle the melody." And he would walk over and start playing the chords. And I go, it was a blessing in disguise. And he would shake his head. No, that's not it. Oh, it was a blessing in disguise. And he would nod his head up and down. That's it. So I would learn the songs like that. When the band would come, I read some, pre-written notes from him, and I sang all the songs. And we rehearsed the band like that. When we got to Nashville, it's the first time we heard him talk in all that time. And his voice was still not up to par, and they should have given him some more time, but they didn't. And so we cut that album, everything in like a couple of days.
Wow.
We knew it so well. And that's what a lot of the, Jerry, Jeff, and Murphy both, by the time we'd go in, we pretty much knew what we were doing, and so it didn't take a lot of time in the studio.
Right. I read a thing you wrote, I don't know if I found it on your website maybe, a thing that you wrote for Texas Music Magazine. Is that right? About the Viva Terlingua? Yeah, it's great. That's an excerpt from your book?
Now it's an excerpt, but I wrote that for Texas for Lone Star Music Magazine.
Lone Star Music Magazine.
And I wrote that, and I'm taking that. It's his sort of his. There's two of them. I'm thinking of two things. One of is the eulogy as well. I wrote, and that's going to be in the book, but. This was, I put that. It was just a wild, Viva Terlingua was just, we had no idea.
Nobody, it's weird. I talked to Gary about it too when he was on the show. But I didn't know, like yours got into like the technical stuff that I would actually like, who had the fucking tape machine? Like how did they get it? You know what I mean? Like, how did that happen?
Well, we were in New York and we were walking. Jerry, Jeff, and I'd go out for walks. So we're walking, and here was these wires across the sidewalk.
Right.
And they were coming from a bus, and a bunch of wires, and they were going into the stage door.
Yeah.
And there was music going on in there. Em said, "What's going on?" And Jerry, Jeff inquired, and it was a company called Dale Ashby and Father, and they were one of the only. I heard there was only two of them in the country.
Mobile
recording studios, world class, had all the equipment, but they could just pull right up. And he says, "Would you come to Texas and we're going to make a record?" And so he got Hondo Crouch, the Prime Minister of Luckenbach.
Yeah.
And they went down there and parked on just outside of the dance hall, and it was immediately blew circuit breakers. They had to rewire the entire town of Luckenbach for electricity, and we had this great equipment.
Yeah.
And Jerry Jeff was saying, "Let's do it there," and a couple of records were recorded like that.
And it was done on 16 track.
16 track.
What year was that?
Might have been 24 track by then. That was 1973.
Yeah.
It was August 16th, 1973, and they pulled in. Town was rewired. We started getting sounds, and we were staying in town, and we'd get out there about 2 p.m. Jerry Jeff had this big galvanized tub, and he's pouring Chianti in it and cutting up apples and oranges and making this sangria.
Yeah.
And we would sit there and have a little sangria and then maybe pick a tune and have a little more sangria. And a lot of the record was recorded not in the dance hall, but outside with bales of hay for baffles and stuff like that. The only stuff that ended up in the dance hall was Redneck Mother, London Homesick Blues, and maybe The Wheel, because by that time we were set up in the dance hall. But those two live, but the rest of it sounds live too, and people were just. Everybody was hanging out, all the hangers-on, the songwriters that would always frequent Luckenbach, and we would just play.
Yeah.
And everybody was respectful and gave us our space.
Yeah.
And sangria wine was just written on the spot, and so was hi buckaroos.
Yeah.
And even the second verse, he says, "It's record time again." See, I was thinking, it's record time again. I can hear old Mike Maitland pacing the floor. Mike Maitland was the president of MCA. And he said, Mike, don't you worry, something's bound to come out. I've been down the road once or twice before. And Maitland liked to, MCA had The Who and Elton John, and Maitland couldn't understand these guys, but they were selling a lot of records. But he liked Jerry Jeff. He's a good old beer drinker like he was.
Yeah.
So he was giving the president a shout out.
Yeah, the whole record has that thing. It's so funny that like such a quaint idea in such a small place reached so many people.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, right? All over the world.
All over the world.
Yeah.
I was playing, because I worked a lot with the State Department. I did all these tours.
Yeah.
And I was in Delhi, New Delhi.
Uh-huh.
I played an outdoor show, and this woman comes up to me after the show. She's nice, sorry, and everything. She goes, "I very much enjoyed your program, but tell me, can you play that song, Redneck Mother?" I just said, "What? Where in the world did you hear that show?" "Oh, every Sunday on the Bluegrass Show on the Voice of America, they play all kinds of things." And then she got to hear, and she heard Redneck.
It's so awesome. And so you're the guy that said Ray Wylie Hubbard at the end of that song and gave him his third name.
Yeah. See, I knew. I think I said that at the front of it. I said, here's a song by Ray Wylie Hubbard. Yeah. And Jerry Jeff left it on there. He didn't have to leave it on there.
Right.
He could have taken it off. But that name, Wylie, his name really is Ray Wylie, but nobody had ever really called him Ray Wylie.
Right.
And so I said, here's a song by Ray Wylie Hubbard, and he owes me money. What can I say? And also, in London Homesick, I said that was Gary P. Nunn. I wanted to let people to know that wasn't Jerry Jeff singing. It was my friend Gary.
Yeah.
And he left that on there. So,
it's a life-changing thing for Gary.
Life-changing.
Yeah. For all of you guys.
For all of us. And it's real wonderful to, I'm just honored to have been part of that and looking back and realizing that it was something big. It changed a lot of people. We made, a lot of people had come up and say, I wouldn't be in country music if it wasn't for Viva Terlingua.
Yeah.
And a lot of those young bands, Randy Rogers, all those people have said that to me.
Yeah. I'm in a band with a guy from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, named Corey Glazer, amazing musician. Moved down here because of that. And he's the guy that was like, "Do you ever listen to this record?" I was like, well, I mean, yeah, it's in my house, like when I was a kid, and it was playing all the time. He's like, "You ever sit down and like listen to it?" I'm like, "Not as an adult. Why should I?" This is like 15 years ago or something. He's like, "Yeah, you should." So we listened to it on this trip. We were going to go play a gig somewhere like Dallas. And we ended up listening to it twice. And it was just like, God, this thing, like, whenever people are trying to find vibe for a record, some producer in some studio trying to find vibe for his record, you guys had no idea you had vibe, but all you had was vibe and good songs. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And good times.
And good times.
And we were relaxed in that way. Nobody was, okay, we need another take. We did everything with Jerry Jeff said, I think we got it.
Yeah.
And even if there was a clam in it or something, he goes, I don't care. I like it.
But that's what it does. I mean, it's making the hair on my arm stand up. It resonates because it's so human.
Yeah.
Raw.
And
good.
And good.
Yeah. Yeah, great songs, great playing. People hanging on, like whatever you get from the Stones, like about to collapse thing.
Yeah.
That record has that in spades.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Yeah, it's got the funk. It's got a groove. So talk a little bit about this stuff. Like, you started doing the State Department stuff, like, in the 80s?
Yes. My wife and kids, Tucker and everything, they were in India. And so I'd go to visit them. And I met a fellow over there who was a Fulbright scholar. And the State Department has these programs where, especially the Fulbrighters, they go over there and they give whatever their specialty is. In this case, the guy was a legal aid specialist from Vanderbilt University. And he told me about the program that they had. And they sent American artists, photographers, musicians, dancers. They sent them, to all over the world. And for propaganda, for American to get the, disseminate information about America and America's interests in a way.
Right.
So he told me about this, and I said, God, I'd love to do it. And he gave me the name. In those days, this was like 1985, 86. and there was no internet. The mail might take 2 months to get a letter across the country. The phone system was completely useless because you had to book a call, and you'd be lucky if it came in 2 or 3 hours later, and you could barely hear. So the only way to communicate was telegram.
Right.
And I sent a telegram to the U.S. Embassy. I'm a musician from Austin, Texas. I've heard about this program, and I'd like to, know more about it. And got a reply kind of right back. I mentioned the guy's name that told me about it, and they said, get to the nearest consulate. Excuse me. Said, get to the nearest consulate, and you can audition. And in my case, it was Madras. John Inman was in India.
Wow.
At the same time. And I said, John, what do you think? Let's go to Madras. So we got on this all-night train. We got there and walked in, and the guy's name was Timothy Moore, and he was the public affairs officer of the U.S. State Department. There's a lot of the people that handle that kind of thing were public affairs officers.
Okay.
They're the people that if the vice president flew in, they have a in-house travel agency. They make all the speech arrangements,
right.
all the stuff. They do it. And with all the music part, the cultural part, they know how to make that happen. So we walked into his office, and I said, I'm going to do a entertaining history of American folk and country music, and I'll take you back from when the songs came over from the Appalachia, came over and landed in Appalachia, and all the songs from Scotland and Ireland and England and everything. They wrote new lyrics, and I did Blue Ridge Mountain Home. I got those Blue Ridge Mountain blues. Yeah. I stand right here to say, that, and the guy didn't say a word. He just looked at me, and those same melodies, I said, went out west, and the Cowboys wrote, and I did some cowboy song, like Bury Me Not on the Lone Prairie, and he didn't say a word. And about halfway through the third song, he stopped me, and he said, hold on just a minute. Do you mind? And he reached down behind his desk and pulled out a banjo. And he said, I've been waiting for you to walk through this door for a long time. And he was this disgruntled, he's State Department, but he wanted somebody to play with. And he says, I'll put you on the road if I can sit in every once in a while. So that's how he got the gig. And so in 80, he says, come back next year. So we went back. I was playing with Jerry Jeff, John and I both. And we had a time that we worked out and went to India. And our first gigs were in 87. We toured 60 cities in India, the length north, south, east, west, and then John said, "I've got to go home," and he left. But my family was there, So I stayed, and I told them, "Look, John had to go, but I'm totally willing, and this time, I want to play with the Indian musicians." And so they got tabla players and mardungams and sitars and veenas, and every town that we'd go to, I'd have these Indian players that we would work up some stuff with. Right. And it worked really well. And, it was like these Indian guys, they didn't know they would say, no, it's not going to work. East and West can't meet. They didn't remember Rudyard Kipling said, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. Right. But he goes on to say, but there be neither East nor West, nor border, nor breed, nor birth, when two strong men come face to face, though they come from the ends of the earth. Nobody remembers that part. Right. And so we would get in there, and I'd say, no, it's going to work, and I don't think so. I'm not at all comfortable. I said, no, it's going to work. And I started going, dump, 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 dump. And that, not fade away. Yeah. Bo Diddley. Yeah. And invariably the musician, oh, you mean that beat? Well, I know that beat. Yeah. And this was the key to everything is they played that and they said, fine, we can do this. And that was our opening, and we would do Not Fade Away with these Indian players, and then we could play anything pretty much. Yeah. Because then they would be willing to try. Yeah. For those people listening now, there's a great video at boblivingstonmusic.com that is you and Tucker. It's a collage or a montage of you guys doing Not Fade Away
in all these different
Yeah.
scenarios with all these different kinds of Eastern musicians.
Yeah, and it is called Not Fade Away all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
It was so amazing, and we were so lucky, and it was such high adventure. People I talk to now go, Bob, weren't you afraid to be over there? No, I never. Even went all over the Middle East.
Yeah.
And we were always taken care of. They just
Right.
really knew what they were doing.
That program, is that the same one like Nina Simone was in?
Yes.
It? Yeah.
And the jazz ambassadors, all those all
Yeah,
those
right,
great
right,
jazz
right,
players
right.
had gone over. See, the Russians and the Americans were duking it out for the hearts and minds of these people.
Yeah.
And the Russians would send the Bolshoi Ballet.
Right, right.
And the Americans would send the L.A. Philharmonic with Zubin Mehta.
Yeah.
You know, and then all the other, other kind of programs they would do.
Yeah.
And so it was really big for a while. It's still sort of, from what I understand, it's happening, but it's just really hard to get in touch with anybody now. The way I got so many shows is the person that booked me in Bombay maybe posted to, Bahrain the next.
Right.
And then organize a whole tour.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'd get in touch with her.
Right.
And talk to her about it. And, yeah, so we'd do all these countries in the Middle East.
That's really amazing. And so now with Cowboys and Indians, this one's supported by the Texas Commission on the Arts and the Economic Development Department of Austin.
Right.
And where do you do that? Mostly just in Texas, or?
It has to all be in Texas. We have played outside of Texas, and in versions of it. That's what we did when we went to Pakistan last.
Okay.
I did a Cowboys and Indians show, but it's mainly Texas. When we first started, it was in '95. We played 25, 30 schools a year. Schools, theaters, colleges, high schools, but a lot of elementary schools as well, and did a lot of stuff. Over the years, it's kind of gotten and then the pandemic came, and we had to cancel all our shows, and so now this is maybe the last year. I don't know we're gonna do it, but it's a virtual presentation. So we're making the tracks, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Making the tracks virtually.
Right.
And then putting video with it.
Okay.
And so that's going to happen sometime in May or June.
Okay.
Well, maybe our last show, I'm not sure.
How does this last record that you put out, the full-length record, was the Flatland Stairs?
Up the Flatland
Up the Flatland Stairs, sorry. In 2018, and now you said you got some song to finish. Are you working on a Bob Livingston record, or?
I can't really say. I'm always working on a Bob Livingston record, but
Right.
I'm not the kind of guy. I work really great, or not great, but I can do it if I'm under a deadline.
Right.
And if I know that there's something happening, that's when I write that song in one day.
Right,
I got to
right.
finish it now.
Yeah.
But I'm not the kind of guy. I do see something like the regatta out here on the, and I'll say something into my phone, and I'll start a little song. And here today at the regatta, I was talking to Johnny, but I have to go back. I'm bad at going back and finishing. Like Paul McCartney said, me and John would sit down, and if we didn't finish the song in 3 hours,
Yeah.
we would stay there until it was done.
Yeah.
Which is so incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. I actually, do you know Mary Gaucher?
Yeah.
I just had her on the show and talking to her. Man, she'll spend like a year.
Yeah.
She spent 2 years on a song.
Yeah.
2 years.
Me too. Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, that's
Leonard Cohen wrote
yeah.
90 verses to Hallelujah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I talked to this lady that wrote a book about him about just last year. I talked to her. It was about his adverse relationship with religion, politics, and women.
Right.
Yeah.
I got it when we made the Geronimo's Cadillac album. Bob Johnston was the producer, and the way that we made it, I came back. I was saying I was playing bass with Murphy, and we came back and we played these folk clubs. The Checkered Flag, we played someplace in Nacogdoches. We'd always play the Rubaiyat in Dallas. It was the folk club, and then go up play the in Denver, different places. And we did that over a number of years. And there was always a guy at the Rubaiyat show, man, you need to meet Bob Johnston. He's a brother. And Bob Johnston, of course, produced Nashville Skyline,
right.
Blonde on Blonde, all the Leonard Cohen stuff,
Yeah.
Sounds of Silence, the Simon and Garfunkel
Yeah.
stuff. So he came to an audition for us and said, okay, I'll get him here. And he did. And 2:30 in the afternoon, we're playing to a dark room with only Bob Johnston sitting in the room. And when Murphy did the song Calico Silver, Johnston just listened to one line, and he stopped us and said, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I don't need to hear any more. As far as I'm concerned, you got a record deal.
Wow.
But finish the song. So we finished the song, and then we did Texas Morning and a song called Natchez Trace, and Johnson goes, that's better than the last one, better than the last one. We're going to make a record. And so we sat down in this room, this darkened room, folk club, and he's sitting directly like we are now, opposite Murphy, and he's talking straight to him. Come to Nashville next Wednesday. I got a George Jones session. I'm going to reschedule it. I want you to come in. I've got 2 days. We're going to make this record. Right. And Murphy says, it's great. And he has not even looked at me or even acknowledged my presence at this point, looking straight at Murphy. And finally, still looking at Murphy, he kind of nods and says, well, what about him? And Murphy said, what do you mean? He goes, what about him? Is he funky? And Murphy said, well, just look at him. What do you think? and he turned to me and he went, okay, you come too. And so I'm on the session. Never played on a record in my life. Never really played bass in my life. And I'm in there, and we made that we cut that record in 2 days.
Wow.
Just me and him.
Wow.
And they overdubbed everything else.
Everything else? Wow.
Yeah. Kenny Buttrey on drums. And I had no idea of 4 on the floor, bump, bump, bump. Right. That was not even in my frame of reference. I was playing with him as an acoustic, so I was feeling a lot of ground, you know.
Wow. I wish I would have known that when I was listening to it, because now I want to go back and see, like,
yeah.
So there was a click?
No click.
I love it.
And he played the drums with that.
Wow. How does modern recording strike you? I mean, I'm 53. I started out with tape and stuff. Yeah. But go ahead. Sorry.
Modern recording. This last record I made, Don Richmond up in Alamosa, Colorado, has this label called Howlin' Dog. Mm-hmm. Shake Russell's on it. Oh, yeah. Michael Hearn, Bill Hearn, a bunch of people. Eliza Gilkinson. Mm-hmm. He's got the great studio. And when we went to make the record, he wanted to do a record on me and put me on Howlin' Dog. And he said, okay, let's do it. And one day I put down 25 songs, me and a guitar. And the next day we just started at the top and started adding instruments. And he's a great bass player, great drummer, he did not play drums on this, but we had another drummer. But he played everything else. Wow. And Bradley Kopp played on a couple of tracks. And I can't remember the drummer's name, but Phil Bass. He played on something. Yeah. But it was all virtual. But flying in tracks and stuff. And so when you're flying in tracks, it's just, you've got to have a click track. Yeah. And you got to be able to play with that click track. Right. Which is an art in itself. Yeah. Yeah. And I've just learned how to do it. Yeah. And depend on it now. Yeah.
You know, a lot of musician guys, a lot of drummers didn't, like with the transition from the 70s to the 80s, a lot of guys got booted off of sessions.
Right.
Because of their inability to play with a click track.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 70s.
Yeah, that became, by the time the 80s and the drum machine and like the quantization of music, which is completely antithetical to the Geronimo record and Viva Terlingua.
And the rest of them. We never used a click track.
No.
Any of that Jerry Jeff or Murphy stuff.
No.
So or Ray Wylie.
Yeah. I can't imagine Ray Wylie.
You know.
Yeah.
No, Ray Wylie, What a guy.
Well, the other thing too is like everybody came up playing. All of you guys, like even when you were playing bass with the Lost Gonzo Band and with Jerry Jeff and with Michael Murphy, you were still playing shows on your own and stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
So you guys all could play and you could.
Yeah.
You know how to hold down a song.
Yes.
Yeah. But so like as far as like, do you notice a difference in sound in digital recording versus old, or do you?
Well,
is there?
Do you?
My ears are not that keen. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of weird. I would never be a good mastering person or anything like that.
Right.
But I don't get as much because I was like a teenager in the '80s. Like my ears got used to digital sounds and shitty digital sounds at that.
Right. Yeah.
What I do, what does affect me when I'm listening to that music, is the feel of it, the quantization. When everything is put exactly on a grid, it feels real bad to me.
Yeah.
I like it when it's intentional, but like everything being like that, like you can feel like guys like you, young guys that are like, you know, guys like us, like songwriter guys, go and make these records where everything is computerized, like the drums are computerized, and it's still trying to have this like feeling that these records that people communicating together in the same room have. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And the Up the Flatland Stairs, it was recorded just like that with a click track. And I played all the acoustic and did the vocal thing.
Right.
And then we overdubbed everything else. And whether it sounds that realness that you're looking for or not, I think it does. I think it's hard to say. And I'm like you. I don't really have those ears to say, oh, that's digital. Oh, that's analog.
Right,
I
right.
can't tell. I tell you who can tell is Willis Allen Ramsey.
Oh, really?
And I remember being at he had a studio in Nashville. Not only can he tell, but we were listening to something. He was just playing something and his wife, Allison, says, you know, Willis, this sounds like it was recorded on an Otari board. And Willis went, well, wait a minute. And he picked up the CD and looked through it. And he goes, why, you're right, honey. It was recorded on an Otari board. What ears do you have to know what kind of board?
Yeah, that's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
But some people could do it. And I think that. I mean, I did this other record. It won the album of the year at Texas Music Awards, and
Yeah, the album's great.
Gypsy Alibi.
Yeah, Gypsy Alibi.
And that was also recorded, I think, with a click track.
Yeah. You know what else?
But that was a band. No, actually, it wasn't recorded with a click track. Maybe, but we had the whole band playing at the same time. It was all live.
Well, to me, it's not like I'm against a click track as much as I'm against going back afterwards and moving the kick drum.
Oh, yeah.
A millisecond because it's not exactly on the thing.
Right.
When that is what the groove is like the space between the kick and the snare, is what really defines the groove of a song.
I think they have a program now that you can actually that you can make that
humanizer.
kick drum off a little bit to make it sound more.
But see, don't you feel like putting your finger up in the air and like, shut up, just go back to doing it, just do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I loved this Beatles documentary.
Yeah,
to see how much fun they were playing, and they're totally goofing around at every moment, and then they start Let It Be again, and the little caption comes up, this is the track.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
Yeah.
And they played it. And on the rooftop, they're amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing. They are amazing. Also, like, Ringo was a guy that, like, I loved him before, but, like, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
What an asset to have that guy in your band.
I know it. He's just...
And also, I think it looks like he was pretty hungover every single day.
Yeah.
And there's even one day when he's like, I'm not doing too good. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he was just a trooper.
He was.
And just like, oh, sure. All right. Let's go. And his feel is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them. All of them. So with the Lost Gonzo Band, did you guys ever go through those like tense times? Obviously, yeah, all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, one of the things when we quit, we were out on the road. We had signed by Capitol. The last record we did was with Capitol, and they said, our manager at the time, this guy Michael Brofsky,
Yeah.
he said, "Oh, we started recording the second record for Capitol, which would have been our fourth record."
Right.
And he says he envisions us as the Moody Blues of country music, and encouraged us to just get out there.
Yeah.
And we all had these, some of them even psychedelic songs,
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And we cut 50 songs. And then this guy who is head of country music of Capitol shows up in Austin. And he says, "I want to hear what the record is. You guys are taking a long time." And rather than cherry pick 5 or 6 songs.
You made him listen to all 50?
I didn't.
No, Michael did.
The Michael Brofsky gets in there and they light up a doobie or something. He thinks, because Brofsky's like, "Oh, this is great." And he listens to it, and all the guy said was, "Where's the country band we signed?" We had no idea. We were not given that direction. We had plenty of country, but we did like that. So they dropped us.
Yeah.
And when that happened, we had no record deal, and we go out on the road for this ill-fated tour in the winter. And we got to Wichita, Kansas, played this place called the Cotillion Ballroom. Uh-huh. Ray Wylie and the Cowboy Twinkies are on the gig too. They have a big fight and break up. We have the big fight, not so much as a fight, but I was desperate. I had a wife and 2 kids back home. We're not making any money.
Right.
We're like out here in the middle of nowhere. The van breaks down.
Yeah.
We can't move. John T. Davis is our roadie.
Okay.
John T. that ended up writing for everybody. He's our roadie.
Yeah.
And we keep him there for a week while the van is being, it's this big thing with the engine. And poor John T. has to hang out. And we all go back, and I just remember it's freezing cold. I walk in the house. It was so cold that in my house, the door was very thin, old farmhouse wooden doors. There's like a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of ice on the inside of the door. We had 2 fireplaces. They're roaring all the time, big Dearborn heaters, so we were, but it was bleak.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was going to do, and the phone rings, and it's Ray Wylie. Man, the band left me. We broke up. I need a bass player. Can you come up to Dallas and play with me this weekend?
Hell yeah.
And I said, yeah. And so I made real money for the first time that I could remember. Hubbard was always the most fair of anybody. We had split it and ended up making some real money. And he just said, can you put together a band? And John Inman and Paul Piercy were part of this group that had dissolved now, and they said yes. So we went up, and we started playing with Ray, and it was tremendous. A lot of fun, hot band. But it wasn't until Jerry Jeff pulls up, at my dirt road. "What are you doing? I need you in the band. You give me energy. I need you. We got all kinds of things coming up." And without much notice at all, I quit Ray Wylie and went back with Jerry Jeff. And there was nothing happening. He was, not lying, but it wasn't together. And so I was still, starving to death. And finally, it turned around, and the manager got the thing and the new record deal and all that stuff.
Right.
But it was those were wild times. I would always jump and hope that the net would appear.
Yeah, I think that's the way most of us are.
Yeah. And I just did with this new band. I'm jumping.
Yeah, totally. You mean with the new band or with the...
With the new band.
Yeah.
And the Gonzo band is more predictable, we know, people remember us, but the people that don't have, in those dance halls, that don't have any idea who Bob Livingston is.
Right.
D is the manager, D. Foster. He's really big in telling the story.
Yeah.
And framing it like, so don't you realize he played on this and he played on that? And I wrote the Gonzo biography, which was when we took credit, rather than saying we were part of it.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah.
And so it's that attitude shift as well, just having a little more faith in yourself. And, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do as good as I can. Maybe these dancers don't know who I am. They know who I am, but they don't know what I can do. They're used to seeing me, advertised in a house concert or a folk club or the big barn dance in Taos or the Red River Folk Festival, that kind of thing. But to play dance music, it'll be interesting. I'm jumping into it.
Yeah, man, it'll be fun.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, those that kind of music, it has its own culture to it and everything. And I understand. I mean, like the house concerts. I've always been like more of a rock guy, even though I'm a singer-songwriter. No one really wants me at their house singing,
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
They probably do.
They might. I never really hit that house concert thing like a lot of my friends have.
It's a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and if you can bring it with just you and your guitar and tell the stories,
Yeah.
they love stories.
Yeah.
They love to be, and I've got a million of them.
Yeah.
And they of course they know who Jerry, Jeff, and Murphy and all those people are.
Yeah.
And I can, if I'm going to do Redneck Mother, I'm going to tell the story of how it came to be written.
Hell yeah.
And so it adds to the song.
Yeah.
Because the background, it's like my friend Andy Wilkinson, who teaches songwriting at Texas Tech. He's the artist in residence. And he has a whole idea about the still point of a song, and it's like a pyramid. And all under what you see with the pyramid is okay, and that's big and important and everything. But underneath the pyramid, all underneath the sand, is all what brought you to that still point of that song. All the research you've done and the reading and the trying out this and that, which has been discarded, it is somehow, according to Andy, still evident in that song.
Yeah.
Up there. And so that's the kind of, if you can kind of give people a glimpse into your writing and what the song is about and put yourself in the scene, you can do cover songs.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, Ring of Fire, and I'll tell the story of meeting Johnny Cash. And,
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. There was something I was reading. I didn't make a note on it, but there's something about did you when you started writing, then you started your own publishing company, is that right? And so you've hung on to it this whole time?
Yes.
That's been good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, this is a crazy story and I can't tell it all, but Hubbard and I wrote a song back when we were trying to do that fourth album, Lost Gonzo album, the second one for Capitol. It was called Hold On for Your Life. Hold On. Mm-hmm. And so I used to do it, and the Gonzos recorded it, and the record deal fell through, so it didn't come on the record. Hubbard sort of forgotten about it, but I would kind of do it. Well, at some point, we're in New York playing with Jerry Jeff, and Michael Brofsky, the manager, said, I'm producing a new band. They're called McKendry Spring. They were from Scotland, and they're looking for material. Do you have anything? And we had just written this song, and I played it for him, and he went, man, that's cool. Let's get those guys down here. We were staying at the hotel, and we went into the bar, and so the head, this guy McKendry, comes in, and I played him a song in the bar, and he goes, man, I love it. We want to do it. So they recorded it, and it was on side A, the first song, called Hold On. Flash forward 20, 25 years. The phone rings in my office. The woman says, are you Bob Livingston? Yeah. Did you write a song with Ray Hubbard called Hold On? Yes. Okay. And so the way I figure it happened was there is this rap guy. His name is Lloyd Banks.
Yeah.
And he was this pretty gangsta character,
Yeah.
He and his brother are walking down this dusty dirt road in New York City, and they duck into a used record store, and they're going through the albums, and they like this and like them, buying them for 10 cents. And he sees this one going up the country with McKendry Spring, and they say, cool cover, and they buy it. They go home and they put it on, and they say, I like the groove. Let's sample it.
Yeah.
They sample it, and they have a kind of an equation. If it's going to be just in the chorus, you get 10%, 15%.
Right.
This was through the whole song.
Oh yeah.
So Ray and I become quarter songwriters and quarter publishers. And that first quarter, it sold 1 million records.
Yeah, man.
But the guy was so out there that they say this guy's going to be the next 50 Cent. He just he got thrown in jail. He shot somebody. Who knows what happened?
Yeah.
But it's called Warrior.
Yeah.
Lloyd Banks Warrior.
That's so awesome.
So you never know.
You never
when
know.
I told Butch Hancock the story, he goes, "Man, my next album is going to be called Sample Me."
Well, you know who's the guy that one of the guys that headed that thing to come after people sampling was Howard Kalin from the Turtles.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, because they got sampled not for Happy Together. There was some other song that for some reason some bin diver, which is what those guys that dig through the record bins looking for whatever. Cool album cover, $1. Who cares? Find some sample on it.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And Eminem produced the album.
Wow. That's so awesome. So how do you listen to music now? What do you like? Do you put on a CD, a record, or do you listen to the radio, or are you a Spotify guy?
I listen to the radio, but I'm so into Apple Music, and I get on my phone. I just say, "Hey, play Ron Sexsmith Essentials," and they'll play all Ron Sexsmith, and then it starts just going where it wants to go.
Right.
And it goes to all this stuff, or play. I said play the other day. I said play. What is it that I wanted to hear? Frank Sinatra is a very good year.
Right.
Play that. And so then the next, and it goes into that kind of big band era and playing all this cool stuff, and then ends up, playing some opera and whatever. So it's kind of like YouTube, watching it at night. I get, YouTube will just go song by song,
Right.
And if you watch it long enough, you get exposed. And so I get exposed to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's weird the way it happens now. If you don't want to be exposed, you don't have to. You don't have to hear anything new anymore. You don't want to.
No.
Which is weird. I mean, it's awesome as a fan, but also I feel like the way that we learned about stuff, it just doesn't happen like that. Like everyone isn't into one thing. Like remember, it's, like Viva Chilingo was like that. So was that, like I used the Christopher Cross the Christopher Cross album as like my mom was friends with like Mark Hallman and Brad Kopp, and that's how I know those guys.
Right.
So when I was a kid, people get together. You go to your friend's house, everyone's hanging out, spinning records, and every time you got to someone's house during that time, that was the record on the turntable, and the first record in the pile of albums, like facing forward.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And those kind of things don't really happen anymore.
No,
like like the end of MASH, like 83 million people watched it, and like the most watched thing is like 7 million or something like that. That's an odd thing.
It is odd, and I never thought so much about it before, even though I'm caught up right in it with everybody else.
We all are. I did a thing last summer where I was like, I don't even listen to whole records anymore unless someone is coming on the podcast, but I don't just actively listen to a whole record like I used to.
Yeah.
So I started making myself listen to a record every day all the way through.
Oh, good.
Like from starting to make dinner till after dinner kind of thing.
Right. And I just make this conversation make me want to, because what I need to do is educate myself a little more on this young country.
Yeah.
Randy Rogers and all those guys. And I'm going to go, when I'm driving home, I'm going to tell Siri to play me Randy Rogers' latest record.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
a lot of that stuff. And also, you had some other things happen that I wanted to touch on. The Walk of Fame.
Yes.
Yeah. That's in Lubbock.
Right. Yeah.
Man, Lubbock. What is in the water there?
It's amazing.
Just nothing but amazing dudes.
There's a movie called The Lubbock Lights. And Amy, I can't remember her last name, but Lubbock Lights is a movie. It mainly has Ely, Butch, the Flatlanders,
right.
Terry Allen.
Yeah.
But they interview a lot of people, and I'm in it. But they're trying to figure out what is it about Lubbock. And I think the determination is aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you were in the Ken Burns.
Yeah.
The country music documentary.
A little bit.
I remember, I just remember seeing a flash and being like, oh, Bob Livingston.
Right, right, yeah. Well, and, we don't know about Lubbock. I mean, Lubbock it was a dry county. It was dry. People couldn't drink beer, There was no bars. So everything that happened, you had to go out to the strip and buy and bring back. and a lot of that crazy stuff. And the Cotton Club was right there. And I was a good, football player and a good guy. I listened to what my parents said, so I didn't go hang out the Cotton Club or anything. It wasn't until years later. But there was music, a lot of music going on, and Ely was right in the middle of it. Ely played. The way I met Joe Ely, I was in college. I was in a fraternity, but I was still playing, and I wanted to have my own club. So there was on the drag there, right across from the street from the college, was this ice cream shop, Ron's Ice Cream. And I was talking to Ron, and he goes, well, I got a basement down here. So we went in the basement, and it was down this little alley into the basement. We called it the attic.
It's a great name for a basement.
And I played every Friday and Saturday, and the place would be packed. And the way I got, and I, at some point during that time, I'd heard about Joey. He was Joey Ely. And I'd heard about him, and he was the talk of the town.
Yeah.
And I went to see him play at this club. And he was sitting on a super reverb amp. He had this funky guitar that was this Gibson guitar that it had seashells glued on it. He bought it in Venice from some guy for $5, but it was a Gibson J45. He had taken the seashells off, but excuse me, let me get a little sip.
Sure.
So he's playing this funky guitar.
Right.
He had taken, it had seashells glued on it. He had taken those off, but there was still the outline of the seashells and glitter and stuff on this guitar. So he's playing that. Excuse me.
Sorry. Allergies.
It is bad.
Yeah, sorry.
So he's sitting on the amp, playing the guitar, and he had a hi-hat that he's keeping the beat with. Mm-hmm. He's a one-man band.
Yeah.
He's playing Baby Let Me Follow You Down and Candyman and all this stuff that I'd never heard before. And it was somewhat like the Beatles taking American music and distilling it and bringing back into a palatable way, to you.
Yeah.
That you learn about your own music.
Right.
And Ely was playing this country blues stuff, but it was totally fascinating. And the next day, I go to a pawn shop, I get the hi-hat, I borrowed my brother's amp, I plug my guitar into it, and I make myself into Joe Ely for a while, and I'm playing in this club.
Yeah.
But I'm playing Proud Mary and stuff, and everybody's drinking beer and throwing beer bottles around, and I kind of that was a big influence on me.
Sure.
Ely doing his thing and starting to write, and he wasn't even writing songs at that time. Everything was cover.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's also like seeing in that video where you guys do Not Fade Away All Over the World.
Yeah.
That song it's the same to everyone. Does that make sense? Like, it's neat to see a 3-chord song that's just so infectious. And there's a thing that you talk about, the line, my love is bigger than the county line, which to me, I've always been like...
My love is bigger than a Cadillac.
Right. Oh. I thought he said my love is bigger... Oh, than a Cadillac. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. I tried to show you, but you drive me back.
Yeah.
Right? That's a really specific line.
It's so specific, and I remember doing it. I would do it. What it became is my song. That it was our theme song. Love is real. Love is real.
Yeah.
Doesn't fade away. We were in Yemen, and Tucker was playing with me.
Yeah.
No PA, no nothing. We're in a college, an art school.
Yeah.
All the girls are dressed in their burqa.
Yeah.
All you can see is their eyes. These beautiful eyes. And there was a young girl right in front of me. And I said, I want to do a song that was written by a guy from my hometown. His name was Buddy Holly. And in the song, he describes how big and how wonderful. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get this
That's
out.
all right. That's all right, buddy.
Wow.
I think I must have taken Zyrtec today or something. Not forgotten.
So we were in Yemen, and Not Fade Away was our theme song in a way. And I said, this is a song about how big and how wonderful Buddy Holly's love was for this girl in his English class. And this young woman is sitting right in front of me. She's got the burqa, and she says, yes! And that reached her. How big and how wonderful. She's not able, nobody was able to do that there.
Right.
Express it like that.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I'm getting through, and I'm doing Not Fade Away, and the place is dancing.
Yeah.
The whole place. That's where you see the video of when all these people are dancing, and the girls are dressed in the burqa, and they're dancing, and their eyes are electric.
Yeah.
You know, they want to see that. And I got to tell Maria Elena Holly that story.
Wow.
And I was on a panel in Lubbock at the Buddy Holly Center, and she, so great that you're taking Buddy's music to Yemen. You know?
Yeah.
But everywhere. And like on that record, that Gypsy Alibi, have you heard Not Fade Away on that?
No.
Listen, it's recorded in Bangladesh. Lloyd Maines was the producer, and he heard it, and he said, and it was just on a cassette player, but it's with the hottest tabla player you've ever heard in your life. And we do Not Fade Away with this tabla guy.
I want to hear that.
And he shreds it.
Lloyd's another Lubbock guy.
Lloyd's another Lubbock guy.
Jimmy Dale, Butch, you,
Mac Davis,
David
Gibbons.
Halley, who's amazing.
David Halley. Oh, God. I've known him since the 8th or 9th grade.
Really? I love that guy. What's he up to? I haven't seen him in
He's back in Lubbock. He's doing.
He is?
He's playing some, but he's mainly doing a lot of construction. He's buying houses and fixing them up and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
And he knows how to do that.
He's a guy that, like, I had him on the show early on. He was a guy that I met like in '91 or something when I lived at the Congress House, and he made a record there. That's a guy that, like, I've always taken note of him, and it's a guy like that you see the cruelty of show business doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
That guy, it doesn't really work for him.
It doesn't.
He feels it.
Huh?
He feels it.
He feels it, but he is so. I mean, he has these great songs.
Amazing.
But his way of delivery, in a way, and I talked about Eatley in the book being so nonchalant with his delivery. And David,
Halley, totally
nonchalant.
Yeah.
He may not say anything, and Willis same way in a way.
Yeah.
Tune forever.
Yeah.
And then do a song. He's not like projecting, and you got to do that.
Yeah.
In a way to reach people.
Yeah. Yeah, there's rain don't fall for the flowers if it's falling. Rain just falls.
Hard living.
Yeah.
It was a number one song.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I remember that around then there was an article about people in Austin and South by Southwest and Rolling Stone, and he was one of the guys that, like, we saw the future,
Yeah. And Tucker, my son,
amazing,
loves David Halley, and is a big influence on him, and he's listened to a lot of David Halley, and he's in contact with him. So
yeah, I also saw this thing that Tucker did where he did a shape of a chord and he called it the Billy Harvey chord.
Yeah.
You know Billy?
Yeah, yeah. And he has these funny videos now, and we're trying to get Tucker to come back around. He's so obscure in a way, but great writer. Put out a great record in 2004. It won him the. They won that first Austin Music Foundation
right.
thing. And
the AMP thing. Yeah, because I work with Austin Music Foundation, and a program that we developed kind of like that now. Yeah.
He won the first one.
Yeah.
And made a great record.
Yeah.
A little overproduced, in my opinion. But Mitch Watkins was the producer. Sorry, Mitch. But brilliant stuff.
Yeah. And on that Not Fade Away, I either I've forgotten or didn't realize what a shredder. Like
he was. He is.
He said, I mean,
know
was
it.
just like,
But he playing like
my God, it could be like
backwards.
a metal band
I know
or something.
it.
Yeah.
He's up there playing backwards. We're up there playing with all these. Yeah, he's doing
Got
that.
his head behind his neck, yeah.
But he is a shredder. And the funny thing is, when we were going to do that tour, Tucker, this was like, let's see, what year? First year, I think, I did a tour with him in India. And maybe early 90s or late 80s, early 90s. And I asked him if he wanted to do this tour where I'm gonna go all over India and Nepal and Pakistan.
Right.
And so he said, yeah. And I said, but you need to learn some country licks. So we went to and met with Champ Hood from Uncle Walt's band.
Yeah.
And Champ showed him he says, I base all my leads on these two licks. And he showed it to him, and he still, and he based all his country licks on it still. I need to learn those licks.
Wow. So you were friends with Champ too?
Yeah, I was good friends with him.
Yeah. I never met him, but I'm friends with Warren, and what a sweet and talented, Jesus.
Just like him. I mean, they were just Southern gentlemen,
Yeah.
and so talented. Uncle Walt's band, they were the Bluegrass Beatles.
Yeah. 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 So did I ask you already, the Gonzo's going to record? Are you guys in the process?
We did record that last live. We were going to hoped it would be a live show, and some of the tracks may end up there. But we are probably going to do, yes, we're going to record. I say yes.
Yes.
But you never know what's going to happen.
Right. At this point, like what kind of producer and stuff, like what kind of record would you guys make now?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I want it to be much more edgy, and it needs to be one of the things about the Gonzo Band. We made some pretty good records, but a lot of it was and a lot of my records, it's writing it on the moment and then getting in. We don't have a chance to play them live,
Right.
and we need a chance to play whatever it is live and get familiar with it, and because everything changes when you play live.
Right.
And like all the songs that I recorded, I do them much better now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope that we would be able, for the Gonzo Band, if we do it in a studio and don't do it live, at least we have that live feel, because that's what's part of it. We were a great live band, not so much recording wise. We did have an album in the top 40 or something, but it was just too obscure, and it was too many different kinds of musics,
Right.
and too many singers and all that. And it was just, we'd do a jazz piece and then a folk piece and then a waltz and that kind of thing.
Too much talent.
Too much, whatever.
To break through the mainstream.
Yeah.
It was too good. No, I feel like that. I mean, I do. And, I got to commend you, because you and that whole group of cats, like Joe Ely, Butch Hancock, Jimmy, Ray, Gary, like all of you guys, the one thing that I think that you've instilled into what still goes on in the Austin music scene, and you can see it in everything that followed you guys, including the Butthole Surfers, including what was Pat and Barbara's band, The Future's So Bright, I Gotta Waste It, Timbuk 3.
Yeah.
Into bands like Fastball.
Right.
Because Tony Scalzo's reverence for all of you guys is pretty high.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that songs like The Way, sort of that Mexican feel going on in the verse of that song, that kind of cha-cha, that comes from something that happened with the Cosmic Country movement. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And all those guys are still we're all still in the game. That's what's another interesting thing.
Yes.
We're still doing
it.
Bruce Robeson pays big reverence to the God. He goes, that album, that Viva Terlingua, he tries to describe it, and you said, you had that sound, and he loves the sound of my bass, and I always thought, I'm just I'm a Neanderthal bass player. And he goes, no, that sound. And when we did, I can't remember, we did a project, and he had me come in and play just to get that sound, So
but he gets that stuff, man. He's a guy that's into, like, there's a lot of soul in his, that, like, the groove is really important.
Right, totally.
And the way you play is, I mean, maybe it is like being a novice coming into it. You developed a style that just fits the feel of the music in a way that other guys don't.
A lot of other guys, we play a lot. And on the Murphy record, that Cosmic Cowboy, Geronimo's Cadillac, I moved around a lot more on the neck than I did after I started playing with the drummer.
Yeah.
Because there was room, because it was a duo.
Yeah.
It was Murphy and me.
Yeah.
And Johnson heard it, and he wanted to get that sound.
Yeah.
He didn't want to just get Murphy. He wanted me to play on it.
Yeah.
He said, and he always loved me, and I loved him. And at one point when, we do Geronimo's Cadillac, it was so intense working with Murphy. I was thrown in the deep end of the pool. His bass licks, he was like, the bass is going to be in the third.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I had no concept. So I'm trying to catch up, trying to wing it, and just do what I do.
Yeah.
And at the end of when we finished it, I was so shattered. And Murphy would do things like, he would stop us in the middle of a song and go, get that bass in tune, that A string's out of tune. Stuff like that you don't do. You just kind of ginch and go through it. But so I was so tense and so young, and and all of a sudden Ray Hubbard calls me up the first time and said, hey, what are you doing, man? I just made I don't know what we did. We made some tracks, and it was the first time I ever been in the studio. And he goes, well, Wayne's quitting. The guy, their bass player, is quitting. And what do you think about playing bass with me? And I quit Murphy after Geronimo's Cadillac, and I went and played with Ray for a while. And the Three Faces, we would call it Texas Fever. Uh-huh. And then we were making real money. Yeah. And then if we made $1,000, we each made $250. Yeah. And this is like, I'm being paid $50 to $75 with Murphy. Yeah. And so these guys are my friends, and they're paying real money. Well, Murphy calls me about 6 months later and goes, Bob wants you back in the band. He didn't say, I want you back, but he goes, Bob Johnston wants you back in the band. And he goes, you got to be there. You're the part. And so when I got back, that's when we did the tour up on the East Coast. And I ended up, it's so fortuitous and synergistic, because we go to do that Murphy tour on the East Coast. We play the bitter end, and that's when Jerry Jeff is finishing the record and calls me and Gary and says, you need to help us finish this. Yeah. And that was LA Freeway. Yeah. That's so odd, man. So when does the book come out? Next year? It's the 50th anniversary of Viva Terlingua. It's next year. This is the 50th anniversary of the Lost Gonzo Band. This year is what we're kind of calling it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, we've been 50 years. Been
wow, doing this man. Stuff. Congratulations.
Older than you are.
No. I'm 53. So almost.
But yeah, almost.
Yeah.
You were 3.
Yeah, I was 3 when the Lost Gonzo Band started. Yeah. And I don't know when I know I saw you guys somewhere. Yeah. The Armadillo with when my mom was watching, and I might have been with all the kids over in that weird corner.
Exactly.
Like Ian Moore and Charlie and Will and
all you guys.
The rest of the Outcasts.
Ian Moore is in that album cover. He was there. He was a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this thing he wrote on there. Yeah, I played in his band and toured with him some. Yeah. Oh. Like 10, 15 years ago or something. Yeah. I love that guy. I'm a huge fan of this whole thing. When the book comes out, you come back on the show?
Please.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's been great talking to you, and I'm really excited about this book, because that piece that you wrote that you're going to put in the book, your writing is really good. Like, that was a really fun piece to read.
And I've tried to do that. I mean, the book opens with a fight, a knockdown, drag out fight. So it's going to draw people in. But I go into a lot of detail, especially those important records for me. Geronimo's Cadillac, Cosmic Cowboy, the first Jerry Jeff, Viva Terlingua, Riding High, Collectibles, all those records. I put you in the studio.
Awesome.
And what it was like, and what Jerry Jeff's mood, what Murphy was like, and some of it's pretty hair raising.
Yeah. Well, everyone was pretty crazy. I mean, everyone was drinking and partying, and I'm sure that the worst fights I ever have with anyone are when I'm having the worst hangover I've had in a long time.
Exactly.
Those are yeah. That's usually when the shit comes out.
Yeah, they say champagne don't make you crazy, but maybe it does.
Yeah, it probably does. Well, people can find you at BobLivingstonMusic.com. There's a wealth of stuff there, and just, man, honestly, this has been great, and it was great going through all your stuff and listening to the music and and kind of like sitting down and going into Bob Livingston world.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Johnny. It's
Yeah.
been a great pleasure.
Yeah, I got to thank Tucker for setting us up and also following up. Like, hey, you didn't do it yet.
Yeah.
So thank you, Tucker, and thanks for doing the show, man.
All right.
Got me a toehold in Tennessee. I got my foot in the door of that California store.
That was me and Bob Livingston sitting by the pool over here in Austin, Texas, looking at the lake, chatting it up. What a great, great, great conversation, man. Get out there and find him at boblivingstonmusic.com. I didn't talk about this in the intro, but his last record, Up the Flatland Stairs, is absolutely fantastic. Came out in 2018. Go to boblivingstonmusic.com. Get involved. Find out when the Lost Gonzo Band is playing again by going to the lostgonzoband.com. Great conversation with the amazing Bob Livingston. Plus now he's starting the country dance band. Look for that. All right, man. Don't forget when you're out there checking out boblivingstonmusic.com, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Overcast, Stitcher, anywhere, new shows all the time. This show, this week, we've got shows dropping Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tune in Wednesday. We'll be talking to legendary songwriter Darden Smith. Yeah, man, we're getting around, baby. Hope you're out there having a good time. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. All right? Have a great week, whatever it is you're doing. Let's get down.
I drank wine with the poets in Santa Fe. I ran with those darlings in Austin, like I ran from Snow White in L.A. I think I'll go and see what's shaking out in Bombay. Don't be concerned if the song sounds familiar. Don't be concerned if it all seems the same. Just be concerned that your politics will kill you every day. And it's all just public domain. And it makes sense